Well, you say that we've not made a great success of
Yes,
making our conversation so far issues-based.
yes.
But is that because, is there anything natural about being sentimental? For instance, if we're talking religion, if we're talking ethnicity, you know, is this not second nature to, is it peculiar to us?
Well, it's not peculiar to us, but it's in a way, do I say it's African or do I say it's, there's a lot of sentiment and emotion in the way we manage ourselves and the way we relate to ourselves and the way we speak. We believe that there is always something, and that's why, you know, something doesn't work. We're also very religious. And when a man goes to bed in the morning and goes to bed at night and wakes up in the morning and says, God who told him so, who are you to argue with a man who God has told something? And this happens a lot in our society, you know. We will have to continue to resist this. And as modernization comes, most of the issues now, even on the social media, when you try to bring out real issues, some way or somehow it descends into the kind of sentiment which otherwise might blow those issues. And it's because in Nigeria, what we have not had over time is what we call the real political settlement. And when I mean political settlement, I mean an opportunity whereby certain mundane things are actually put aside or resolved before we get to the table. Unfortunately, the National Conference was an opportunity to actually raise and stick to certain issues.
Why do you say that's unfortunate? I mean, the National Conference did get to a resolution, and, you know, we have the resolutions with the presidency. Some of them will be implemented by the National Assembly. What's unfortunate about it?
It's unfortunate because I would have thought that the issues of the National Conference would be primary issues at which some of the politicians would be debating now, whether they would find resonance in that or not. Because during the National Conference, there was a whole raft of issues discussed. Issues concerning Nigeria's social harmony, economic prosperity, its political stability, the regions, the relationships between its people, and quite frankly, the failure of, the threatened failure of Nigeria is our inability to manage the human resources primarily. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Who would you blame for this inability to focus on issues? I mean, you say we've not made a great success of it. Would you blame political parties or would you blame Nigerians? Because it would seem that we are also political parties are quite adept at bringing out the faults in their opponents, and one of the ways they do it is to look for those things that could be sentimental in nature and catch on easily.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. To a large extent, yes, political parties have a lot to be blamed for. Nigerians themselves, too, we tend to have a short attention span. The newspapers can be very exciting. When you have the new news, you forget what's happening yesterday. We tend to be very short-term in solving our issues. We tend to be very monocultural in everything we do, and that transcends our economy, transcends sports, everything. We focus on football, it's football alone. We focus on oil, it's oil alone. Now it's politics, we're going to narrow it down to one particular issue. That is our nature. Unfortunately, or fortunately, people's natures change, and from time, the imperatives of the times is forcing us to move in the direction which we should be going. One thing that hasn't been done, or we've not been able to do well, is to coordinate a series of activities. That is the coordination in the whole political space. And I'm not sure who's supposed to take that responsibility. I wouldn't have that answer.
Let me jump in. What kind of impact do the people we elect into office have on this impression that you have?
Well, in the first place, what they stand for, what they come out to, and what they say will give that impression. There's something called perception. Once somebody comes out somewhere and everybody has a perception of what he stands for, what he will want. If a candidate comes out, the opposition looks at his weak spots and says, okay, this is the best way to attack him, or this is the best way to reduce him. And if it's the converse, they will say, okay, this is the best way to elevate him.
Okay, how about, are you impressed with the quality of people that come up for elected positions year in, year out?
Well, to be honest, there's there happens to be, I think there has been some improvement because I've done a bit of analysis on the quality of the people. Some have said, I mean, perception and some of the analysis we've done has shown that the politicians are a bit more conscious in just serving the people, any candidate. And that's why the attention to things like primaries, the attention to things like fairness is involved. They also look at, this is the first election that I've heard the word electability raised by so many people in so many parties. Somebody's not electable, the other person. What categories they
Is this synonymous with the electoral value of the person?
Well, the electoral value, I don't know whether it's the electoral value or the moral value or the social value or what people perceive as, yes, eventually you're right, probably electoral value in comparison to who the others might be bringing out. That's it.
But, you know, if you look at the entire process, I mean, you say there's been some improvement from 1999 till date. Do you see a situation where, say, maybe successful private businessmen, entrepreneurs will just throw themselves into the ring and say, listen, I need to make an impact here. I'm going in there, because the impression we get, most of them, they think, look, they say it's dirty. I can't go in there and do all of those kind of things, and then they just let every other person go do it.
Well, I think it's getting to that point. I think it's getting to the point where people will see that, well, you know, the space is more focused on, is growing towards a situation where it's focused on issues that they are comfortable with and they can discuss. They've seen other people make mistakes. They've seen that the electorate is becoming more educated and more sensitive to the quality of what is being spoken. They've seen that they have the opportunity of social media, that they don't necessarily have to go everywhere campaigning. They see they have an opportunity to be listened to with social media and stuff like that. So they will be drawn in gradually.
How soon or far away do you see us getting to that point where we elect people based on what they can deliver, devoid of any of those other sentiments, or maybe those other sentiments at the lowest ebb, but saying this person can do A, B, C, D, or E?
Well, we are getting to the point, but we will get to that point first based on how visible the candidates are themselves, either before the elections, during or after, particularly before the elections. Because how do you know what a candidate ABC? A lot of people use the barometer that, look, because he's been in government before, and therefore he should be able to do it. Whereas it's possible, at the point of being elected to represent your people, whether as a governor, as a president, or anything, what people want from you basically is the leadership, is the ability to motivate them. Not necessarily, it's not necessarily you that will hands-on, will have to do the stuff, but they want a person who can motivate them, who can drive them, who can tell them that this is where we are going, and they say, oh, this looks like a beautiful destination. They want to see somebody who they can identify with and say, okay, this man, if we follow him, he will go. A man who can manage resources and bring other human beings, especially human resources.
What do you think?
To join the table.
So what do you think can help us identify such qualities? A debate or?
Absolutely, debates. Absolutely. There is no way, if Nigeria is going into these elections and we're going to just campaign and we're not organizing debates for these guys, then we are making a very, very big mistake. Because it's in the point of debate that people are challenged. You see, nothing is good or bad except by comparison. A man's statement cannot be evaluated except by counter-argument. You want to know the candidates, you want to know a candidate that is not accountable is usually a candidate that runs from debate. The first thing you want to know, when a candidate says he does not want to debate with another candidate, know that he's not prepared to be accountable. He's not prepared, it is automatic. He's not prepared to be accountable, he's not prepared to be transparent, and is not prepared to be challenged.
What if the person is just not eloquent? What happens?
Well, if it's not just eloquent, I mean, look, there is time for preparation. You can prepare to be eloquent. You will separate the eloquence from and that's part of it. Look, being president or being governor is no tea party. You have, if eloquence and if communication is a primary responsibility of the person who is supposed to lead us. How do you want to lead me if you're not communicating with me? You don't have to speak so beautifully. You don't have to be super eloquent like a JFK or anything, but for crying out loud, you should be able to say something and say it clearly.
All right, thank you for coming on. Sina Fagbenro-Byron is a development expert. We've been looking at some of the issues or some of the things that we think should be in the front burner as we go out and make up our minds for the 2015 elections. Thank you again for coming on today. We'll be back after this break. Join us again.